I will leave Islam right now, but in one condition.
All right, let's check it out.
Put in the comments section down below one mistake that you can find in the Quran. And wallahi, I am going to leave Islam right now. You can't do it.
Yes, you can. And I'm not going to just show one, I'm going to show 5. So in Surah 20, verse 71, the Pharaoh threatens to crucify his court magicians. What's the problem? Crucifixion wouldn't exist for another 14 to 1500 years. But whoever was writing the Quran didn't know that. They made a mistake. The second mistake is in the same chapter, verse 95. We see Moses talking to a Samaritan. What's the problem? The Samaritan people group didn't come until hundreds and hundreds of years after Moses, in the 600 to 400 BC range. The author of the Quran didn't know this. Moses never spoke to a Samaritan because they didn't exist. The third mistake we see here is in 86:6, where the author of the Quran thinks that the fluid to make a child comes between the backbone and the rib cage. Everyone knows that's not true. It's a mistake. The fourth and fifth mistakes are actually in the same story. One is the story itself, which I'll get to, but within the story, chapter 18, verse 86, the Quran says that the sun sets in a spring of murky water. That is a mistake. The story itself in Surah 18 is actually about Alexander the Great. He's called the Dual Carne, or the two-horned one. As you can see in this depiction of him, you can see one of his horns. There would have been one on each side of his head. So the story in Surah 18 actually copies this 6th to 7th century Syriac Christian apocalyptic work about Alexander the Great. You can look it up. It's called The Romance of Alexander the Great. You can go read the specific part of the story where he travels to the end of the earth, right, finding the setting sun, and he battles Gog and Magog, and he helps like build this gate and whatnot. You can read that story, and then you can read Surah 18 and see clearly that whoever was writing the Quran didn't understand that this was a made-up story about Alexander the Great way later, and they put it in the Quran, even though it's completely made up. Because there are several mistakes in the Quran all over the place in different areas. And so if you're a Muslim watching this, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. One, like look into my claims, see if they're legit. But more importantly, call out to Jesus. Ask him to show you who he really is. Is he the Jesus of the Quran who's just a man who was a prophet? Or is he actually the Son of God and the Savior of the world? I'm probably not going to be able to convince you. But call out to Jesus himself and let him show you who he really is.